Hello, kia ora, and welcome to a very special edition of the Racket. Now, this is our regular broadcast from Torrens University, Think Education, and the Media Design School. And today, we are all coming to you live and direct from various locations around Melbourne. I'm Bryce Ives. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs at Torrens University Australia. Now, before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, I want to say we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the countries throughout Australia, their connections to land, their connections to sea, their connections to community. And today we are all broadcasting from Wurundjeri, people of the Kulin Nation. So we pay our deepest respect to elders past, present and emerging, and we pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people all around this country, and to our Media Design School colleagues. We also pay our respects to the Maori traditional owners and to our Pacifica brothers and sisters as well. Now, today on the Racket, we're going to be discussing how profit and purpose can go hand in hand. We're going to take a deep dive into what it means to be a B Corporation and how this movement of sustainable, ethical, and for-profit companies can and should change the world. Now, first, let's take a moment to learn about what the B Corporation movement is all about.
So to be a B Corp, it means to use your business as a force for good. It means understanding that your impact on your different stakeholders, on your staff, on your customers, on the communities you serve is equally as important as profit, and in fact actually helps drive profit and helps drive long-term sustainability of the company. Torrens, as a private company, is a certified B Corporation, and it's something I've always been interested in, and how business intersects with social impact and environmental impact is incredible, and Torrens is at the forefront of that. So to be a B Corp, it means to use your business as a force for good. It means understanding that your impact on your different stakeholders, on your staff, on your customers, on the communities you serve, is equally as important as profit, and in fact actually helps drive profit and helps drive long-term sustainability of the company. Customers want to buy products from companies that are actually doing good things, and staff want to work for companies that they believe in, that their values align with. One of the real benefits to being a B Corp and the value of being a B Corp is that it looks at your entire business model. So it doesn't just look at the product you come out with, it looks at your impact across your entire business model and how you've integrated those values into the actual business model. It is a global community. It's a global community of best practice. It's a global community of people who truly believe in the idea of using business as a force for good. Our mission is ultimately to expand access to higher education. When going through the certification, it actually asks the question, what percentage of your students come from traditionally underserved populations? This includes low-income students, minority students, and returning adults. For us, this actually validated what we were doing, because we found out that 44% of our students were from these traditionally underserved populations, which was incredible for us. For individuals and companies, really the value of being part of the B Corp community is being part of a global community that really believes in this idea of using business as a force for good, that companies can not only be best in the world, but also best for the world.
I'm so proud to work with that guy on a daily basis. That's Todd Wagner. He's the Chief of Staff to Linda Brown, who's the President of Torrens University Australia. And Todd's actually been a mover and shaker in the B Corp movement globally, and we're so pleased that he's part of Torrens University. I just had a few goosebumps then watching that one, just thinking about our work. You know, we're thrilled that we've got three incredible CEOs joining us today from significant B Corps. We've got Abigail Forsyth, and she's the Managing Director and the Co-Founder of KeepCup. And I was saying to Abigail before that I can remember 10 years ago when these little KeepCups started popping up all around Melbourne, and like it felt a little bit like a cult at the time, and I had to join it, and I did. I love KeepCup, and it's great to have them part of the conversation today. We've got James Thornton, and he is the CEO of Intrepid Travel. Many of you would know Intrepid Travel. It is a renowned brand and great values behind it. And also our very own Linda Brown, who's the President of Torrens University, Think Education, and the Media Design School. But let's meet our first guest now, James Thornton.
get out of bed for a whole series of different reasons. Profit is solely the output of what we do. So we get out of bed to make sure that we provide customers with a fantastic experience, that those customers benefit the environment and communities within which they travel. We took business back under private ownership in 2015. We came up with a strategic direction of growing with purpose. There are so many companies out there that are just doing good marketing, that they're not actually trying to transform and do good across an entire spectrum of different stakeholders. We became the first B Corp in Sri Lanka, in Cambodia and Vietnam.
We want to live in a world where businesses care as much about their people, customers and the environment as they do about bottom line returns.
Now, James, Beardless this morning, I think that lockdowns clearly had an impact on you. You're looking very freshly shaven there. How are you doing?
Oh, it's been a tough time, hasn't it, Bryce? But we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Pleased to slowly have our freedoms returning to us here in Melbourne.
It's been an incredible journey because you joined Intrepid in 2017, and as I said, many people will know this brand. It's renowned, and they'll know you as a travel company. But there's much more to Intrepid. So give me a sense of the mission.
Yeah, actually joined Intrepid in 2005, so I've been with the company 15 years, but CEO for the last 3.5 years since 2017. So been very lucky to grow up with Intrepid over the course of the last 15 years. Look, our mission is to be the best travel company for the world, and we do this through our sustainable experience-rich travel. We have more than 2,700 itineraries, which ordinarily would be going to more than 130 countries around the world. At the moment, that's not quite the case, of course. But look, and then we have this overriding vision, and our vision is to change the way that people see the world. And between our vision and our mission, it really guides everything that Intrepid does. I've been reflecting on that a lot recently. And why this is so core to our work, and why we continue to do what we do. And we ultimately, Intrepid, believe that travel can be a genuine force for good, and it's why we're committed to giving back to people and the places that we visit, and empowering our travellers to do the same. But a lot of travel companies are out there, a lot of businesses are out there saying similar sorts of things through their marketing. But backing up is much harder to do. And so Intrepid started on its B Corp journey back in 2015. And it took us 3 years to become a certified B Corp. We had to assess our 23 companies around the world. And like it says in the video, we became first certified B Corp in countries like Sri Lanka and Cambodia and Vietnam. And the assessment is so stringent. And by becoming certified, I think it really does prove that we do what we say we do.
It's a genuine global impact, and travel, of course, like there are two sides to the coin here. As you can say, it genuinely can be transformative, both for the individuals who are traveling and for the communities. It can also be devastating and dangerous as well in different contexts for communities. So I'm listening to this in terms of first in Sri Lanka, and thinking to myself, what a responsibility for you. How do you ensure you keep yourself in check as an organization and meet that responsibility? Because obviously in developing countries, if you do this right, you're going to have an impact in many other ways.
Yeah, look, we think we can be a real pathway to success for many other companies. I think, Bryce, there's a notion, isn't there, in business, that if you're going to be a for-profit business, then in some way you have to be doing bad by the world. And if you're going to be doing good for the world in business, then that means you're an NGO. But I just fundamentally don't believe in the concept that a business can't be successful, commercially successful, derive strong revenue growth and strong profitability, but also make a material difference too. And actually that one drives the other. Fundamentally Intrepid, we believe, and we've got a proven business model, particularly in the last 4 years, that the more we grow, the more we can do great things in the purpose space. And the more great things we do in the purpose space, the more we can grow. And within that mechanism, we can actually benefit all stakeholders within the Intrepid group. And actually, it's no longer it's a nice to do. It's actually a must to do. And more we're seeing more and more business talk about that purpose piece. So yeah, it's a big responsibility, particularly to set the way in some countries that B Corp is less familiar. but it's it's one we're excited to be part of.
James, it's really great to have you in this conversation, and also to hear you speak words that are very true for the Torrens University experience as well. And for our students who are watching, for us, this notion that profit and purpose can go hand in hand. What a crucial idea, particularly at a time like this. James, we're going to come back to you shortly, but we're going to go to our next guest, Abigail Forsyth, who's the Managing Director of KeepCup.
Our whole business is around reducing disposable cup waste and reducing single-use plastic. So, for many people, carrying a Keep Cup has become a gateway into a world of improving that. Hello, I'm Abigail Forsyth. I'm the Managing Director and Co-Founder of KeepCup. Our product is a solution to the problem of disposable cup waste. And people asked us, well, is it fair trade? Is it organic? Is it CE certified? And there was no real certification that really said who we were and what we did that was independent. So B Corp provided that.
Abigail, it's a pleasure to have you, and I love your story, particularly because like anyone who was once a solicitor and then can lead a pivot and become a co-founder and managing director of a B Corp. I love anyone who's a unicorn, who has multiple skills, and it seems like it's been an amazing journey over the last 10 years. Describe it for us.
Oh, it's been an incredible journey. So I think, it was a problem I thought I could do with my left hand and just sort out this issue of disposable cups and then get on with my life. And it's consuming, and it's taken me all over the world. It's deepened my understanding of, I guess, the environmental crisis we're in, the waste crisis we're in, the broken recycling system, and the opportunity to keep pushing that forward and making change. So I think it started off just, as you said, the product was the campaign, and carrying a Keep Cup was a voice of optimism and dissent. And it's now evolved into something where we need to be looking at the processes and the systems that create this convenience culture and driving an end to those. So in that sense, we become not just a product, but the business of KeepCup itself has to become an example of how to do this and how to do this well. So, we're trying to set a high benchmark for others to follow, to leapfrog over the top of us, and to create a better world.
I'm sure that many of the coffee lovers watching today, no doubt, know KeepCup. But I don't know whether they would be aware that KeepCup is a B Corp and would be necessarily thinking about this model. So tell us, how does KeepCup live up to its B Corp values?
When my brother Jamie Forsyth and I were creating the business KeepCup, we had a lot of discussions and arguments about whether we'd be sexy or whether we'd be sustainable. What would we lead with? And the first market we did, we took a lot of time with the design and the colour. And the first market we did, a guy in his 40s spent a good half hour deciding between the soft charcoal and the warm grey. And we knew in that moment that being sexy, having great design, being inclusive, having joy in the product, the product had to have an intrinsic value. So sexy wins. But we're like a superhero. You sort of rip open our chest and it's green inside. So we're B Corp. We give 1% of our revenue to environmental conservation. We pay a living wage in all our markets. So everything we do backs that up. And when you were talking about that before, I think the thing that is, it's got to be true. It's got to be true. So our staff know it's true. Our suppliers know it's true. If our customers investigate, they'll know it's true. So it's the truth of it that rings out, I think. Before you know it, you know it,
I could not love the sexy and sustainable analogy anymore, but also because, like, similar to what James was describing before, like, my background has been, first and foremost in not-for-profits and charities and in volunteering, and I think all of those things are really important. But I do also believe that scale is important and impact is important. And this thing around being sexy, like creating a product that is beautiful, it does mean something, doesn't it? And then being able to do it at scale. Tell me about the scale of KeepCup.
Oh, so we, we knew that it was an incredibly the legal background. I knew it was a very copyable product. So we knew our best strength was our brand. So when KeepCup started, we just followed that interest wherever it took us all over the world. So if it cost us, probably cost us $50 to send a cup to Arkansas, and they paid us $20, but we knew we had to just grow the movement and grow the brand, because the story was very sticky. It's. I once sort of stumbled over the description with this guy at a trade show, and he goes, yes, it's brand in hand. And it turned out he was from Coke, who of course know all about brand in hand. Like, you carry it with you and people see it and they say, what is that? And why are you using it? And what you want is people to be able to tell that story. So I guess that's how we've grown. It's through those stories, through people advocating with their own behaviour, and it's taken us all over the world. We've now got an office in the UK. We sell in, I think, 65 countries around the world. Wherever there's coffee. And Australians and New Zealanders have been a real boon for us as a business, because often I've been in a roastery in Sweden and out the back I hear this Aussie accent on the roaster. So Australians have helped us spread that message through their travel and through their love of coffee. So
I think there is an old story. If you want a good coffee in Europe, find the Australian barista and you'll get a good coffee. Abigail, we're going to come back to you shortly. But next, we've got Linda Brown, who's the President and CEO of Torrens University Australia, Think Education, and the Media Design School.
Being a public benefit corporation, being a B Corp, we need that. That's why you guys, everybody in this room has been courageous enough to come and work with us, because you want to give back that sense of purpose.
Is part of our DNA. It's part of the foundation that we've built our culture on.
We have created something phenomenal. People want to support it. They want to take it to the next level. They want to invest in it.
We have found a way to percolate these good ideas, that they come to the front and then they can be supported.
And that's us now. Be good is one of our values, and we will continue that.
Linda, we talk about embedding our values into everything we do. So how do we live our B Corp ethos at Torrens University?
I think, when we created the university now 7 years ago, we always say that we were built on the shoulders of giants. And Laureate International Universities at that time was such a significant global player around here for good. And then being part of the B Corp movement. So we were really blessed that when you create a university from scratch, you get to build it the way you want. You don't have a legacy that you're trying to change. So right from the start, when we look at our values of being global, being creative, being good, these were non-negotiables for us. To the staff that came to join us, who were courageous to join a brand new university, to the students that we attracted, to the scholarships that we put out, to the education without borders that we facilitated across the world. So we were in a really, really blessed position that we could actually create the architecture of a university built on that Be Good premise. And I remember a quick story that when I came to join Laureate and came to create the new university, I really struggled. I was a public education girl, an ex-stockbroker. I believed in the public system. I helped run the public system in Queensland, helped develop TAFE. And here I was going to work for a private company that built universities. And that really, I struggled with that. Until, to be honest, my son and daughter turned around to me and said, but Mum, you're going to create the leaders of the future. So if you do this well, and you incorporate Be Good and public benefit in everything you do, you're actually going to have an even bigger impact. And I think everybody who comes to work with us, every student has that feel that we can change the world, and we are providing the skills and the opportunity to do that.
Now, you and I are as bad as each other. We egg one another on, and we both believe that so fully. And I think the thing that both drives us is that we believe that a B Corporation as an education provider is a huge opportunity. Let's reflect on what that opportunity is for a moment, because you've touched on a few points, but what's the opportunity of a university being a B Corp?
I mean, it's non-negotiable, isn't it? That's what a university is. It's there for public good. It's there to provide new models of business going into the future. It's there to provide research that makes us more sustainable. It's there to support non-traditional learners get a better economic future. So for me, it's just absolutely the foundation that all universities built on. And we say we can't measure public good. You know, we were very clear in the first 6 years of creating Torrens University that we wanted an economic measure for good. We actually got Deloitte Access Economics to do our productivity report on the benefit of Torrens University. $2.6 billion with not a cent from the government, all private money listed on the NASDAQ. So for me, it shows that you can use private money for public good. B Corp, as James said, as Abigail said, it gives you certification. It gives you an independent view, an independent audit that actually holds you accountable. And it's not make sure you're not false advertising. Make sure you can stand behind your claims. And I just think it's an absolute no-brainer that universities should be empowered to go through the process, because then we will teach leaders of tomorrow how to use different business ethics, but different models to create business for good.
And there's so many wonderful examples. You know, I received an email just this morning about a group of design students who are pitching a new business idea, and straight away they think of it as a B corporation. You know, and so I'm just reflecting on that responsibility. And if you think 10 years into the future, Linda, if Torrens succeeds and you know, we bring our friends from Intrepid and KeepCup along and others, like, what should the impact be in Australia and New Zealand?
I think for me, the impact really is through the movement. It really is the celebration, for me, is the thing that's missing. I think a lot of businesses do good, right? And a lot of businesses, it's intrinsic in their value, but it isn't highlighted or isn't amplified. And there is this attitude, I think James spoke about it, Abigail spoke about it, that only not-for-profits or small cottage industries can do good. These big bad corporates are always doing something wrong. So for me, I think to actually get the opportunity where the two things are equal, you know, profit and purpose, and we actually talk about that and we celebrate that, I think in 10 or 15 years, that is going to become the norm. And should become the norm and what's expected.
Okay, we're going to bring everyone back into the conversation now. So we've got James, we've got Abigail, and we've got Linda. We're actually all in Melbourne, and we are allowed to see each other now, but we're still practicing our social distancing here for the moment. Now, Milton Friedman, you know, put that position quite famously 50 years ago, that the primary objective was for businesses to return a profit for the shareholder, but that's obviously being questioned deeply now. So as CEOs, how do you reconcile profit and purpose? But particularly, does this create a tension or a useful tension in the way that you do business? So James, first to you.
Yeah, Bryce, great question. I mean, at Intrepid, and I'm sure it's the same with Abigail and Fiona, that being a B Corp means we always balance all of our stakeholders, and that really guides how we try and make our decisions. I think what's probably very unique at the moment for Intrepid, and maybe also for Abigail too, but you know, it is arguably the most challenging time to be a global travel company. You know, we have had to refund $20 million of revenue that we earned last year. We've had no tangible revenue for the last 7 months, and you know, we have no clear pathway to revenue moving forward because international borders, particularly for our Australian and New Zealand clients, seem as if they're going to remain shut for the foreseeable future. So, you know, it is the most unbelievably challenging time, but also a very interesting time when it comes to B Corp, because clearly I've got to protect the financial side of Intrepid, but I've also got to continue to represent and take care of our people, take care of our customers and our communities, because they're equally as important to us. And it is a real balancing act. You know, I can't just sit here right now, 7 months, 8 months into leading a global travel company through a pandemic and say it's easy. But in general, our philosophy has always been that you know, the two ultimately balance each other, and the more we grow and succeed financially, the more we're able to support in the purpose space. But just because we haven't been able to grow this year, and because we haven't performed well financially, it doesn't mean to say that we haven't then been working very strongly when it comes to our purpose initiatives. You know, at Intrepid, we've really been advocating, arguably even more strongly than ever, that the travel industry has the most unique proposition at this current moment in time to rebuild more resiliently and more sustainably. And we really believe that travel industry is going to use this pause to focus on the future and to make sure that as a sector we rebuild more responsibly. And we're really using B Corp methodology to do that. And one of the best examples I can give you, Bryce, is that, and it's one of our biggest achievements over this course of the last 7 months, is that just last week we became the first tour operator in the world with verified science-based targets. Now, we've been carbon neutral since 2010, but we recognise that's no longer enough. And so now we're one of, I think, 530 odd companies in the world that has approved science-based targets with the Science-Based Target Initiative. And it's really significant because I know this sort of commitment to our purpose will ultimately help our profits in the future. And these ambitious targets to reduce our emissions in line with a 1.5 degree future will ultimately make Intrepid a better, more sustainable company. It will enable us to attract more customers in the future. It will enable us to attract better employees in the future, and it will enable us to, I think, operate better experiences. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Abigail, just reflecting on that tension point in terms of profit and purpose, does it provide some useful tension in KeepCup?
Maybe, but I think often what happens to businesses, and it's happened to KeepCup as well. I mean, our distribution model has collapsed because cafes are in such incredible strife all over the world. So, you know, what do we do? You know, do we lobby and we want cafes to how do you respond to that? And if you do that from the point of view of your values, it delivers a different outcome from the point of view. I heard an interview with the guy from BP saying, we deserve to be in business. Our business needs to continue to exist. And it's like, well, why? Why does your business have to exist? So it's when there's a turning point in the history of the world or in markets or the way we do things, and we have to respond with our values at that moment. And I don't think until that time, your values are really tested, because a lot of the things that we're doing for KeepCup around purpose and product, they enhance our brands, they save us money, there's not many double-edged swords there. And the same thing I think is happening to B Corp as a movement as well. Like, are they going to talk about climate change and really, you know, at some point growth and climate change are going to come into conflict, and, you know, B Corp has to decide what it's going to do there in terms of its audience, just as KeepCup has and as Intrepid does. So we all, there's a crossroad for all of us.
But Linda, there'd be some really interesting insights there, because obviously, you know, your responsibility to 20,000 students during COVID and how you've managed it. How have you done all of that and reconciled the profit and purpose conversation?
Yeah, I think exactly, you know, as we're all saying, we led with our values, and it really gave us an opportunity to stop and reflect around what was important to us. And we made two very simple statements at the start of this. We would keep staff working and that we would keep students learning. And for me, that's been our North Star all the way through this. Safety and care first, and creating hope for the future. So for me, I think the opportunity that COVID gave us, and we've kind of come out during COVID. You know, we were doing well, phenomenally well, fastest growing university in Australia. But when COVID started, our technology base, our student centricity, our devolved model of 16 campuses across Australia really assisted in putting us in the limelight for the first time ever. You know, the Australian government selected 4 people that knew how to do online well, and globally, and we were one of them. And they said, you know, these guys know what they're doing. If you need help, go and ask them. We ran the first ever careers fair for year 12 because we knew that they weren't getting the opportunity to look at what they wanted to do next, and hope was really important. For the first time ever in Australia and in New Zealand, all the universities worked together on our platform to provide a common service for students. We decided that we were going to be fully open. If anybody wanted our smarts, our content, any opportunity, we would give it to them, because the world and the society at that point in time, and the critical nature of COVID, was more important to us than making a quick buck. So we put out $2 million worth of free short courses to keep people motivated when they were in lockdown at home. This week we launched a depression and anxiety MOOC with Beyond Blue, a partnership, a free course that 2,500 people started this week. 700 people have done our Changemaker course. None of that is about Torrens. It's about partners. It's about distribution channels. It's about being good, and it's about being fair and being accessible. And I think it really, I don't disagree with the Milton Friedman comment. You know, we've grown 30% during COVID, not because we had a strategy to grow, because we were good. We looked at purpose. So for me, I think it's really brought us into the limelight. It's brought us into our place in Australia and New Zealand and globally. And we got the Innovation Award from the AFR through that. Did we think about any of that when we were doing it? No, we just wanted to do the right thing.
No, as you described it, it sounds like a very well written strategy, but it definitely didn't feel like it as we were doing those things this year. It felt like we were just doing what felt right on any given day and making those decisions. Now, James, you've heard Linda. She's described COVID as a coming out moment for Torrens University, which, you know, I'm thrilled to help Torrens come out on any given day of the week. But, you know, like that's lovely. And you've actually described it before as a beautiful pause to deal with some of the bigger things that you actually always wanted to deal with, and you've had that time and space. Now, I know we don't have a crystal ball and we can't imagine, you know, completely our way out of the pandemic right now. But if you think about what you've been able to pause and do, what should that mean 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, beautiful pause. I'm not sure I can say it's been beautiful at all times, Bryce, to be honest with you. You know, relocating 3,500 customers and suspending, 60-odd thousand trips. It's been really, really tough. And, at Intrepid, unfortunately, we've lost people as well. So it's been a really challenging time, but it does provide us with this unique ability. And I keep using this reference of a supermarket, and when you people talk about this notion of responsible travel, and I say, well, responsible travel is just the way travel should be. And I use the notion of a supermarket. When you go into a supermarket, there's a health food aisle. Well, what that tells me is that there's 2 aisles in the supermarket where the food is healthy, and everywhere else in the supermarket, the food isn't good for you. And it's a little bit like that in the travel industry, that there's kind of the travel industry, and then there's this group of responsible travel operators who are ultimately trying to operate as a business that is on B Corp methodology of being a force for good. And what we really need to try and prove within the travel industry is that actually all travel businesses need to be responsible. Because if we aren't responsible, then fundamentally the thing that we sell and market, which is the world, the beauty of the world, the communities within the world, won't be here, and they won't be here in 25 or 30 years' time. And right here, right now, the world has had to pause for the last 8 or 9 months, and maybe longer, because of COVID. And perhaps next year there'll be a vaccine for COVID, but there won't be a vaccine for climate change unless we change the way in which we run and operate our businesses today. And so I suppose that is ultimately what we have used this opportunity to advocate for. So during a period of what has been kind of forced semi-hibernation, if you like, we have kind of doubled down and been even more committed to advocating for the industry to rebuild responsibly, for the industry to to make responsible travel the standard of travel everywhere. And one of the ways in which we're doing that as a B Corp is to share what we do. So we've shared our climate program, our decarbonisation program. It's a free 10-step guide for a travel business to take it from our website and implement it in their business. We've provided open source toolkit on steps to improve animal welfare on travel experiences. So really, we're trying to lead and show our experiences and provide those to other travel companies, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
I mean, my use of the word beautiful before is like, because you could also not have done those things. You know, like it could have been, it could have been a shit time, and also you not deal with those bigger picture things. But clearly, you have.
Been both. It's been both.
Well, it's about making the most, isn't it, of what's dealt. I want to come, Abigail, just back to your provocation before, because you're suggesting that there is perhaps an elephant in the room when it comes to B corporations, because there is a conversation where growth and climate change have to be dealt with. So putting a stake in the ground, like how would you like to see the B corporation movement deal with that elephant in the room?
I think it's about coming out about purpose is a pretty vague word, and ultimately purpose is only meaningful when it's anchored to values, and there's some, I think, as to use your expression, stakes need to be driven into the ground about what those values need to be in 2020, and one of them is addressing climate change. So if you're in a business that fundamentally is not, I think it's probably, for me, it would be around the circular economy and having playing a part in that, and then looking at donut economics and looking at questioning growth. I mean, I don't think they need to question growth, but ultimately that would be a consequence of putting climate change and addressing the climate catastrophe at front and centre of what B corporations need to be doing. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the purpose if there's, as what did Patagonia say, no business on a dead planet?
So there's no doubt we're at a turning point, and if you look at our own strategic plan, Linda, like one of the things which we note right up front is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we know that requires innovation and collaborative solutions, but there are also considerable challenges to meeting those. So, like from your perspective, Linda, and hearing this, what role do you see business has in creating a more just, equitable and sustainable world, and how important are the Sustainable Development Goals to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're critical. You've got, but for me, even listening to the sustainability debate, I think we've even got to go a stage before that. For me, poverty is a key driver of not just inequality, but damage to the planet. So for me, there's a major debate going on at the moment around having a global living wage that would see lots of economies and lots of areas across the world get to a decent standard of living, that then some people can then actually start to think about sustainability and supply chains and how we deal with that in a much more productive way. So for me, I'm a very applied kind of gal. I want to know what we can do to fix something, how we can provide skills, how we can provide opportunity to do that. And I think there is, what I love from the conversation that I'm having just now is the way that we feel. My job is not to educate 20,000 students. My job is to influence and change the education system in Australia, and then to add and influence the education system across the world through Education Without Borders. So for me, I love to hear about the conversation that's happening within the travel industry, the conversation that we can have with our supply chains, the conversation that we can have with our partners and our staff to really make everybody do that extra 10, 20% around sustainable goals. But I think it's a non-negotiable now. I have a really, I'm quite spiritual, and I have a real feeling that Mother Nature, COVID for us wasn't necessarily that dreaded country flu, the way that some politicians talk about it. For me, it was actually Mother Nature saying, guys, you have time to fix this. And look at what's happened to the planet since we stopped flying all over the place, driving cars. I'm in Melbourne today. The air is so much better, and we're in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I don't think there's been enough done to create the correlation, if you like, between the planet and the planet starting to heal. You know, we've now got deer running through areas that we would never have had before in Victoria. We need to really step back and say, what have we learned during this period that will accelerate the sustainability debate, and what do we not go back to? And I think that changes the whole debate around sustainability for the future.
It is it's a fascinating prospect that 2030 is now not that far away. So James, like when you come back and you look at those UN Sustainable Development Goals, and I reflect just for a moment, working with young people, worked with a group of teenagers in the Mallee in regional Victoria last year, and one of the kids actually burst out into tears when they were reading the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because very much was aligned with what they wanted to see in the future, but they also felt a great sense of despair being in the Mallee where you can actually see and experience climate change very much all around you. When you look at them yourself and you think about the future, you think about young people in particular, can we really use this moment to, as Linda says, to listen to Mother Nature, or will we just go back, you know, to the same debates and the same ways of working the moment we start moving again? How do we actually use this moment to listen and respond?
Oh, that's a great question, Bryce, isn't it? I mean, you know, companies like Intrepid, like KeepCup, like Torrens, you know, why we're here today is because we believe in what we believe, and we believe that business can be a force for good and can make a material difference. And I think, you know, we're increasingly seeing US Business Roundtable. We're seeing, you know, more of the bigger businesses talk about words like experience, about purpose, about values than arguably we've ever seen before. Will we actually see material change happen? I think again this is where the B Corp movement has such power, because if we can show that being a business that is a force for good is actually good for business and a commercial success. You know, Linda talks openly there to the fantastic success that you've had at Torrens this year. You're doing the right thing and it's delivering materially better results. Now, you know, you're both very humble as to say, well, it wasn't really our intention as to the way it worked out, but you know, being good for business, being a force for good can be really good for business. And that's what Intrepid was experiencing, you know, up until COVID impacted us. We'd had 4 record years of revenue growth. We'd doubled the size of the company over 4 years. We'd hit record levels of profitability for 4 consecutive years. But at the same time, we had, become a certified B Corp, the largest in the travel industry. We had declared a climate emergency. We'd committed to our Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan. We'd made big steps on diversity inclusion, big steps in terms of our purchasing, ethical purchasing. So, you know, but these things were driving a better commercial result. So I think it's the more and more that businesses like ourselves, and as the B Corp movement grows, that shows commercial success actually can be driven more by doing the right thing.
Okay, so and you're saying that, and we see this as well from our own business, that this, like, our success and our profit goes hand in hand with, as we're doing impactful things and purposeful things tied to the values. And I personally love the dynamism that produces around our board table and around our executive table. We have frank and fearless conversations, and they're really multi-layered conversations as well. And you know, that's brilliant. But like we also know, and we've all tapped into this, that there is still a perception held by a lot of people in the general public that big business is bad. You know, that business and profit tends to lead to not so great outcomes. Yet, James, like you're talking about, you know, the scoreboard that Intrepid has, and I would believe a lot of Australian companies have it. So what do we have to do in order to have a conversation, nationally and internationally now about this work? What do we have to do with the community, and what do we have to do with other businesses?
Ultimately, the biggest business is bad, isn't it? If you think of the four biggest companies in the world right now, Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they're essentially monopolies, and monopolies aren't good for the world at the best of times, and there's some incredibly bad outcomes that are coming as a result of that, and it's going to need strong government input. Now, we can't rely on government alone to make these differences. So I just keep thinking that it's seeing businesses like ourselves that are of a decent size and scale. We have in many cases hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, sometimes billions of dollars of revenue, and reporting openly on the successes that we're having and sharing those successes. And a company like Intrepid, our revenues pre-COVID are approaching $500 million, and yet we're getting advocacy opportunities and opportunities to speak on national news. And we really do believe that this powerful storytelling and visionary storytelling is so important to getting the messaging out there. And we spend a lot of time on PR, a lot of time on communications, talking about how strong business success can also be very closely aligned to being a force for good. And we're seeing that growth in certified B Corps all over the world, and I just think we have to keep telling those stories, keep telling those successes. And I think increasingly, particularly younger people, they want to work for and they want to buy from sustainable, ethical businesses, and increasingly over the course of time, we will become the norm.
Abigail, do you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly I do. I think KeepCup is a business that is about individual action, and that's how we've driven the business, about taking personal responsibility for what you're doing. But that has driven an incredible change. Like, we're in McDonald's and we're in Cafe Nero in the UK, and that's not because they thought it was a top idea. It's because their customers said, we want this. They drove the change and they forced it through to these big organisations. So make no mistake, organisations are listening. And so what we all need to do is be where we can, be active participants in democracy, in the capitalist system. We, hold our governments to account, to set a vision that's inspirational. We engage people, and we, write to companies, tell them what you think, engage with them on social media, use those platforms to drive the change you want to see, and businesses will respond because they want to be in business.
Abigail, could you have imagined 10 years ago that you'd be in Macca's? Was that part of the...
That gave me, that was a really controversial decision for KeepCup, because it was a time where we were, we've built through the independent coffee scene. That's our market. And then McDonald's came to us, and for us, it's all about sustainability. But ironically for them, I think it was about improving their reputation around coffee. So we're known for being a vessel you would have a great coffee in. So they had one agenda, we had another. And in the end, we said, well, they're the biggest, they have more disposable cups than anyone else in Australia by far. So if we're serious about removing disposable cups and going single-use free, we have to be a McDonald's. We have to have a seat at that table. So
I reckon that's sorry, I was just going to say, Bryce, that's a really interesting point that Abigail makes. Intrepid's had exactly the same problem with Amazon. Intrepid's actually operating a bit of product for Amazon now, and we've really debated that strongly internally. Should we do that? Because Amazon, some of the work practices, they don't really align with what Intrepid's values are and what we believe in. But fundamentally, Amazon are going to do it regardless. So I'd much rather that Intrepid is operating and changing the behaviours for the experience on the ground and the clients, and knowing that those clients are having a sustainable product than being operated by someone else. So hopefully we can make some influence in that manner, which is very aligned to Abigail's point.
Yeah, and I mean, we just, a victory we've had in the lockdowns, we've just done a stainless steel cup, and most of the stainless steel in the world is made in one city in China. And so we're a tiny little customer of this massive company that probably makes 80% of the steel vessels in the world. And the vessels came to us and they're all in a plastic bag. That's how they come. That's how they've come standard since they started making them. And we said, we don't want them in that plastic bag, get them out. And it took us 6 months of negotiation to get these cups out of a plastic bag. But in doing so, that's changed the operating system of that business. And, you know, we're going back to them now going, well, why don't you do that for all your customers? So, you know, it takes a lot of tenacity sometimes and some pretty unglamorous activities to really drive change. But, you know, you can see how that, like the flow on of that can be quite enormous.
Abigail, like I often use the term velvet sledgehammer approach, you know, so like you've got to keep going, but you've got like, it's got to be silky as well. So
sometimes you've got to take that velvet off though and just bam.
Linda, I mean, you're in the privileged position because of the Laureate international connections, where it's not just big business that you sometimes sit beside through those networks, but also like a global network of universities and institutions all connected to industry. And so I guess that, you know, in reflecting with in those conversations, you know, alongside other industry leaders, what do you do to sort of influence these conversations? You know, is it, you know, can you subtly bring it in, or is it present in the conversation? The role of B Corps, like how do you bring this conversation to bear?
I think it's very easy for us to bring the conversation into some of the key thought leaders because of our success. So people are always curious about how have we done so well against global trends and how have we created what we've created and the impact of what we've created. I think for me, really, not the other universities, our industry, although we advocate a lot, we're an AmCham board, Australian Chamber of Commerce, incredibly involved with and all their policy groups. But for me, I think government has a place to play. And for me, I'm a public policy girl. One of the biggest drivers of B Corp accreditation in the States was the Public Benefit Corporation. So the fact that in some states in America, they created this third type of business, not a not-for-profit, not a for-profit, but a public benefit corporation, that allowed you to clearly say to your shareholders that purpose was as important as profit when you were making a statutory decision. And that really helps. And I think Australia should be the next country to bring in a category of business around a public benefit corporation. And then there's tax benefits and other benefits around registration and just the mechanics of running a business that will really drive the movement forward. And I think we have an obligation to push that. And I think it would really differentiate Australia on the global stage. So I feel that there is a real advocacy role to play in showing that you can have a beautiful business and showing how it helps the country and showing how it helps the economy. And we should really be pushing for that over the next couple of years.
Okay, we're very quickly coming to time, and it is beautiful to see. We've had hundreds of people tuned in across the different platforms. So I'm looking forward to seeing the final numbers, but it looks like at least 250, 300 people tuned in, which is lovely for an after little morning chat with three exceptional human beings. But we know that some of those people who'll be tuning in will be some of our students, and of course, and some of them will be watching later on as well. So James, let's turn to students for one moment, and if you could be in the shoes of one of our students in a bachelor's degree or a master's degree right now, and you're going through this year, the year that is 2020, that started with the bushfires and all of that stuff at the start of the year. We pivoted to being fully online in March as a university. What would you be saying to students right now as a B Corp leader yourself? Like, what can they be focusing on right now to ensure their success and community success moving forward?
Oh, that's a big question, Bryce. Goodness, what could they focus on? I think ultimately it's to try and educate themselves as broadly as they can, and listening to and following businesses that they believe are doing the right thing, and trying to learn from those businesses and improving themselves, and trying to set about what they want to do to try and make their own material difference to the world. So I'm not sure that's particularly insightful from me, given the year that we've had. Maybe that's just reflective of the year that I've had, but yeah, just trying to follow and admire the businesses that they think are doing good things, and then try and implement those learnings in their own career choices, I think.
But I think that's also clear because it will involve them actually spending time getting to know those businesses deeply. I think
so. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that are wanting to do the right thing, have great intentions, but it's taking those bits of the different businesses. Not every business is perfect, and so that's one of the things of being a B Corp. Intrepid is not the perfect business, and I'm sure Abigail would say the same. Fiona would say the same too. We're not perfect. We're just trying to be better every single time, and yes, it's working out what those learnings are.
Okay, so Abigail, putting you into the shoes of a student right now, what would be your message?
Well, I keep hearing a lot of podcasts and things like this where 50 plus business leaders talk about, the inspiring youth and the children of the future. And I think you guys must want to say, F off, you old 50 plus person who's butchered the world. So what I want to say to them is, guys, we've got this. We are going to do it. Don't worry. It's going to, you've got to be active. You've got to participate, but don't lose heart. We're going to do this. Spoiler alert, we're going to save it. So just be patient with yourself. Be patient with the journey that you're on. It's going to work out. I think it must be incredibly stressful. And us old codgers are going to sort this out and deal something better for you moving forward.
Linda, what about from your perspective?
I mean, for me, it's really about what you can control, especially in this current situation. So it's about your own personal circle of influence. And that circle of influence will be much larger than you have ever imagined. The time that you're taking to reconnect with family, community, having conversations, mental health conversations, planet conversations, the fact we're not driving, we're not in airplanes, we're actually making an impact today. So really look at your personal circle of influence and set yourself some targets around that and celebrate the hell out of everything that you're adding value to, because you are going to come out stronger, more resilient, and you are going to help us old codgers do exactly as Abigail and get this right.
I'm glad you didn't tell them to F off. That's nice. That was I like that. Okay, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by some of Australia's leading B corporations today, with James Thornton from Intrepid Travel, Abigail Forsyth from KeepCup, and Linda Brown from Torrens University Australia. If you are feeling inspired and you want to know more about becoming a B Corp, you can take Torrens University's free short course devoted to the subject. And as Linda mentioned before, we've actually got a whole suite of courses that we've made free to the general public. So if you get on there, you might find other things as well that tickle your fancy. My dad's actually doing a few of them right now, so he's thoroughly recommended them. So if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. Okay, so we'll leave you with this short video teaser for the course right now, which you also saw at the start of the program. I'm Bryce Ives. Have a great morning, and we'll see you again on the Racket soon. Thanks so much.
Oh!